So I gotta look at some of the comments before we started tonight. People obviously are anxious to say hello to each other and whatnot after the weekend. And there's one from somebody who says, "Shadow, there's a fake account on here, and it's trying to add friends." We get fake accounts like that all the time. I wouldn't worry so much about it. Just ignore the fake account. It's probably an older dude or something that looks like an older dude, good looking, maybe the most interesting man in the world. And he thinks you're keen. He thinks, wow, wouldn't it be great to be a friend of yours? And maybe we can start communicating with each other, and maybe you can give me your Visa card number. Huh? Eventually, that's how these things work out. So if you guys could write down the name of the fake account in the comments, because at the end of the show, there's over 1,000 comments in there, and it's very difficult for me to track down. And sometimes these things are very sneaky, too. They hide in sub-comments, and so you have to really dig deep to find them. And if it annoys you that much, it annoys me, I'll be honest, then I will go looking. I'll start a hard target search after the show is over tonight, and I'll get rid of this guy. So what's the name? Can you write it down in the comments for me, please? Hello, Linda. You're in Scotland? Holy crap. They've got digital ID coming out there, apparently. Anybody know what this fake account is called? He's using the Shadow Davis show. Ooh, sneaky. And he's trying to make friends. So is it spelled incorrectly? Is it spelled some different way, Barb? Well, now that you guys know there's a fake account out there, it shouldn't be too difficult to avoid it, right? Hey, I've got some very big news tonight to tell you. I'm very excited about it. It just came in like a half hour before the show started. And as a matter of fact, I would have made the show's thumbnail this, but there wasn't time. Sometimes the news just comes in at you like that, and even though it's been out for a couple of days, sometimes it takes a while to get circulation going on social media, and then people pick up on it, and then kaboom. Names have been named by a couple of, one police officer and one former police officer from Vancouver, and a current RCMP officer. So we're going to dive into that in just a second. The Shadow at Night live stream, as always, is brought to you by Canada Nano Silver, CanadaNanoSilver.com. Very successful weekend this past weekend in Yorkton. Want to thank everybody for coming out and saying hello. Don't forget about these amazing skin creams. You could even shave with them if you run out of skin cream, like I did tonight. I ran out, shaving cream. I ran out of shaving cream, and I went, oh no, I got to shave. What am I going to do? And then I remembered, you can shave with this stuff. It's that good. And it comes in two different fragrances and one non-fragrance. The Canada Nano Silver Skin Cream, coconut oil, vitamin E, leaves your skin feeling silky smooth, helps protect and beautify your skin. It's fast-absorbing, non-greasy. It is safe for kids, perfect for dry and damaged skin like we've all got this time of year. And eventually, in the next week or so, we're going to be starting to wear open-toed shoes, and you want to get those feet back in shape for summer, right? Like, how do they look right now? Dry, cracked, elbows, probably the same thing. I understand that. Scented with grapefruit essential oils or lavender essential oils or no essential oils at all. pH balance, no parabens, no harsh preservatives, no synthetic colors, no harmful sulfates. It's the skin cream. There it is right there. Available at CanadaNanoSilver.com. Again, that is CanadaNanoSilver.com. Okay, let's begin with this story first. From about a week ago, less than a week ago, from the CBC here. An RCMP officer, I'm going to skim through this because this story is not necessarily the story that I'm about to drop on you, but this just gives some background to these two guys. An RCMP officer and a retired Vancouver cop say not even police are safe from high-tech spyware. The pair allege RCMP used phone hacking technology on them as witnesses in this ongoing foreign interference case. So let's scroll down here. There's retired Vancouver police officer Paul McNamara. So Paul McNamara was out with his family in August of 2023 when he had a phone conversation with a friend, Ontario RCMP officer Pete Merrifield. As he talked, he noticed his phone became unusually hot, like it was about to melt down. At the time, McNamara, who retired from the Vancouver Police Department in 2016, was on vacation in Montreal. When he tried to order an Uber, he says his phone was locked due to too many password attempts. He found it odd, but brushed it off as a glitch. Then that fall, he learned the National Police Force had used controversial spyware called an on-device investigative tool, an ODIT, to remotely hack into his and Merrifield's phones. This was revealed thanks to evidence in an ongoing court case involving another former RCMP officer where McNamara and Merrifield were witnesses. McNamara says ODITs allow police to read messages on a person's phone in real time, even on encrypted apps like Signal. But two-step authentication can still otherwise block access to data on certain apps that would require police to know the person's password. Well, concerns from privacy advocates and human rights groups have focused on these tools being used to spy on journalists and other citizens. In this case, spyware was used on a current and former police officers who say they were only ever told they were witnesses, not suspects, in a foreign interference case. The two are now raising alarms about how the invasive technology was used in their case and the implications it has for broader police use. Meanwhile, one expert told CBC he worries this type of spyware has surpassed legal frameworks protecting Canadians' privacy rights. And guess what? There is no law that prohibits spyware use in Canada. But I want to get back to the part where these guys were witnesses in an ongoing foreign interference case. Okay? So this got dropped on X a couple of days ago. And it's from these two officers, one current, one former. And there's names named here. You know, we've been hearing about these 9 MPs or 11 MPs for the last couple of years. Pierre Poilievre, get your clearance, all of that stuff. But we didn't know the names. These guys have decided they're going to drop names. It's an open letter to Prime Minister Mark Carney from April 12th, a couple days ago, 2025. Mr. Carney, don't forget to like and share, you guys. Get this out to as many people as possible. Debbie, Lulu, Susie, all you guys watching on Facebook, like and share this. All you guys watching on Rumble and X and YouTube tonight, get this out to as many people as possible. This is important. This is very important information. Right now, we're in the middle of an election campaign, and even though all of the polls are showing that Mark Carney and the Liberals are in the lead somewhat, I don't believe them. I don't believe the polls, but you never know. So we've got to have all hands on deck on this. And I believe this is something that could absolutely cripple the Liberal campaign. Now, this is kind of akin to the Canadian version of the November surprise they have in the United States, or the October surprise, where every year, every election cycle, something big comes out about one or maybe both of the presidential candidates. But this is news that is required listening. It's not meant to upset the apple cart of this election. This is simply information that we have been looking for the past couple of years. And it comes from a current RCMP officer and a former Vancouver cop. So again, let's begin. Mr. Carney, as you stand for your first election to the House of Commons as a member of Parliament, you're also seeking a mandate from Canadians to become their Prime Minister. Hang on, make sure. To become their Prime Minister and to lead this nation. You are presenting your financial background as the requisite and relevant experience to lead a nation without having demonstrated to Canadians your ability to tackle difficult political issues in any real capacity other than in proposed and unfulfilled election promises. Perhaps it was your lack of political and government experience that saw you mishandle the extremely serious matter with your current member of Parliament, Paul Chang. Liberal MP Chang not only acted without integrity as a member of Parliament and former police officer, but openly called for the abduction and handover of a Canadian citizen and political opponent to a foreign country that the Liberal government has criticized for human rights violations. This unparalleled action in Canadian history was your first public test as a leader to demonstrate your respect for the rule of law and to act swiftly with integrity. You hesitated and did not publicly demonstrate the recognition of the seriousness of this offense. The Liberal Party has long espoused that they and Canada respect the rule of law. The time for you to prove this with meaningful action is now. We, the undersigned citizens, are presenting you with an opportunity to demonstrate to all Canadians that you're worthy of their support, that you're a leader of integrity, that you respect the rule of law, and that you will always act in the best interest of Canadians ahead of partisan politics. The Liberal cabinet ministers named herein, past and present, some now working in your Prime Minister's office, have directly and by intent permitted serious breaches of Canadian law. Remember, these guys have been witnesses in foreign investigation cases, ongoing. They know a little bit of stuff. They failed to act on serious allegations related to national security, conducted themselves in their cabinet roles with apparent malfeasance, and as a result have ultimately placed several Canadian citizens at grave risk. After 2 years of inaction by these cabinet ministers that you have now assumed leadership of, several innocent Canadians have been placed at risk of direct retaliation by Chinese foreign intelligence and security agencies. Had any of your ministers acted in the 2 years prior to October of 2024, when their intervention was requested by the undersigned, they would have stopped innocent Canadians from being identified for their activities and knowledge of Canadian covert intelligence operations in China. These innocent individuals now and forever have a target on their backs unnecessarily in a war of espionage between Canada and China. We are asking you to show leadership and immediately remove the below-listed individuals from your party and or this election. We, of course, are offering you documents, communication records, and evidence to support these claims. The named ministers, past and present, of concern are as follows. Marco Mendicino. And by the way, Marco is now Carney's chief of staff. So he quit as an MP and then came back a few months later as Carney's chief of staff. Failed as Minister of Public Safety to act in protecting Canadians abroad from potential arrest and detention. Failed to respond on direction from Prime Minister Trudeau's office to address impropriety at CSIS and the RCMP. Permitted breaches of law, breaches of process, and breaches of policy by both CSIS and the RCMP. Dominique LeBlanc failed as Minister of Public Safety to address breaches against Canadians with improper use of electronic spyware by CSIS and the RCMP, failed to address breaches of the Canadian Charter of Rights, permitted breaches against labor unions by improper government use of spyware, failed to hold to account CSIS and RCMP to their restrictions of operations in sensitive sectors of national security, and failed to respond to these concerns after direction from the Prime Minister of Canada. Further, did not hold CSIS to account for withholding critical national security information from an active RCMP national security investigation. Bill Blair failed as Minister of Public Safety by authorizing extreme powers for CSIS to undertake inappropriate actions against innocent Canadians. Permitted breaches of the ministerial directive on national security operations in sensitive sectors, permitted breaches of the Canadian Charter of Rights. David McGuinty failed as chair of NCCOP and recently Minister of Public Safety to address improper actions of CSIS for withholding critical national security information from an RCMP investigation. Anita Anand failed as the president of the Treasury Board to intercede and address improper use of spyware by the RCMP against a labor union executive during a period of collective bargaining and unfair labor practice filing. Steve McKinnon failed as Minister of Labor to uphold the Canadian Charter of Rights. Melanie Joly failed as Minister of Foreign Affairs to address safety risks to Canadians traveling abroad to China and their family members in China resulting from the public release of protected Section 38 national security documents by the RCMP and the Public Prosecution Service of Canada without redaction. Arif Virani failed as Minister of Justice and Attorney General of Canada to address safety risks to Canadians traveling abroad to China and their family members in China resulting from the public release of protected Section 38 documents. Chrystia Freeland failed as Deputy Prime Minister to address reported breaches of labor rights, misuse of spyware technology by CSIS, and RCMP breaches of charter rights. Wow. Those are some big liberal names, aren't they? Mr. Carney, you have an opportunity to prove unequivocally to all Canadians that you will place Canada, Canadians' ministerial responsibilities, and the rule of law above partisan political activity. If indeed you're presenting Canadians a choice of something new, then take action now rather than making election campaign promises to look into it later. Demonstrate that you're not the same old government of the past 9 years that's failed to protect Canada. It's never wrong to do the right thing and to earn the trust and confidence of Canadians. If you wish to be a nation builder for the future, he doesn't, then you must not surround yourself and empower the failed engineers of the past. Submitted respectfully, Sergeant Peter Merrifield and Detective Paul McNamara, Vancouver Police, retired. So I'm going to put that document into the comments. You guys should be sharing the crap out of that on your social media in the next couple of days. That's kind of important because along with those two pages that I just read to you, all of the evidence is tacked into this document as well. And I haven't heard a peep yet from the left-wing corporate media. Have you heard of Buttongate yet? You haven't? Oh, wow. Here's Michelle Rempel Garner to tell you all about it.
There was a conservative sort of meetup, a conference of sort of right-leaning activists that happened in Ottawa last week. And there is a story in the Globe and Mail that had this quote in it. It said, at an annual conservative gathering, people gleefully traded a photo of a campaign button with the name of Mr. Poilievre's chief advisor, Jenny Byrne, and crossed out and replaced with Mr. Tonight. So it was this story about these buttons that were circulating at this conference. So here's a picture here. And there was ones that said, stop the steal, make Canada great again, free Alberta. There was these buttons that were circulating and they made it into mainstream news articles like the Globe and Mail, like I just quoted. So it was this narrative that was coming out that all of a sudden, Pierre Poilievre is doing like American style politics. But guess what just happened, guys? Because Pierre Poilievre has been putting Canada first with a Canada First plan, right? And the Liberals know that. And people across the country are showing up to his rallies, thousands of people. It's resonating on doors like mine. And people are motivated to get out and vote the Liberals out of office. So the Liberals are desperate. Look what they did. Look at what they did. This is insane. They found it just is breaking that it was Mark Carney's team that made these buttons up, put them in this conference, knowing that there would be media there to spread fake news, American-style disinformation at a time when, the Liberals are talking about, Canada, elbows up, Canada strong. What does this look like to you folks? What is Mark Carney's team did this. Now, here's the kicker. Here's where it gets absolutely wild. They were so cocky about doing this and fooling the mainstream news that they bragged about it in public at a bar. And a reporter was sitting beside them and wrote this story. Now, you guys might think like, okay, well, it's a few buttons. It made it into like mainstream news stories. It was circulated on social media like the Conservative Party was doing this, right? It was the topic. It came up in mainstream news panels, mainstream news outlets reported on this. So it was a massive disinformation operation, number one. Number two, think about the planning that something like this took, right? They would have had to do graphic design. They would have either had to get the equipment to make these buttons or order them. It took a lot of forethought. Then they would have had to get passes to go into this campaign. And then they went out and celebrated it afterwards. Okay? So Canada doesn't need this type of garbage, guys. This is the hallmark. Mark Carney's team, right? This is what they've done to Canada for a decade. They've tried to divide us off of crap like this, right? This is exactly the Liberals. This is what they've done.
Now, I see a lot of comments from people saying, she's just a World Economic Forum member. She's a young global leader. She sure doesn't sound like one, does she? She may be. It may still be in her bio. She may still be up on the World Economic Forum website. And maybe she is. I don't know. But again, everything she says certainly doesn't sound like it, except for one thing. When she talks about Bill C-63, that censorship bill, the final nail in the coffin of censorship in Canada that I'm certain Mark Carney is going to try and bring back if he is elected, she says, no, we don't need that. It goes too far. We've got our own version. Why do you need a version of censorship, Michelle? Never really elaborated on that. Now, Polyev says he is totally against censoring the internet completely. And he's the leader. She's not. So I don't know. And this is the choice that we're making in this election. As some of you sit back and say, I'm voting for the People's Party. That's fine. Go ahead, do whatever. I think it's a wasted vote, but you go ahead and do whatever you think is right. And maybe they're infiltrated in some way as well. I don't know, but in a different way. If we look at the Liberal Party of Canada, what we see is complete and total compliance with China and the World Economic Forum. Complete and total, 100%. They are infiltrated. With the Conservative Party of Canada, yeah, they may be infiltrated, but to a lesser extent. I don't know exactly how much, 20, 25, 30% maybe? I don't know. So there could be some machinations going on in the deep cockles of the Conservative Party of Canada. Okay, we're in power, and now we can start rolling out our agenda completely and totally under the nose of Pierre Poilievre. He'll never even know it. That could be true. I don't know. But better a party that's only infiltrated 20 or 25% than completely and totally. Am I right? Okay, Buttongate. She just told you all about it. Here's Mark Carney's response. Now, let me ask you a question before I play it. If you had employees who had completely and totally undermined you and your business and made you look like an ass in front of an entire country, what would you do? You're fired, right? Okay, so watch Carney's response here.
The Liberal War Room, so the Central Campaign, distributed Stop the Steal buttons at a Conservative event. Given the anti-democratic implications of this phrase, how much does this event undermine the trust in the way that the Liberals operate? And what have you done in response to these revelations?
Thanks for the question. Look, this is totally unacceptable, to be absolutely clear. And on behalf of my campaign, I was unaware of this behavior, but on behalf of my campaign, I apologize for it unreservedly. Okay. I've made it absolutely clear to my campaign that this behavior or anything approximating it or in that spirit is unacceptable, cannot happen again.
So it's unacceptable. It's completely and totally unacceptable. It can't happen again. So what does he do? He doesn't fire these people. He reassigns them to a different part of the campaign. If this is the way this man operates a business or a government, there is a huge problem. It's just more of the same crap. I'll tell you, there's somebody out there that doesn't like Mark Carney too much. And yeah, sure, Pierre Poilievre, probably a good 45% of Canadians don't like Mark Carney too much. But Yves-François Blanchet, the leader of the Bloc Quebecois, seems to especially despise Mark Carney because he is Quebecois. And Carney can't speak French very well. But that's not all. Listen to what Blanchet has to say about Carney this afternoon.
I believe that Mr. Carney is trying to get a free ride. He got a lot of momentum at the beginning of the campaign, and they tried to hide him as much as possible, which seems to be pretty easy because he seems to be quite preposterous. I believe that Canadians will do the same as Quebecers.
Wait a minute, hold on. Let's go back. He seems to be quite preposterous. I'm not sure if that's the word he wanted to use, just a bad translation. He does speak very good English, Blanchette does. He's preposterous, like he's a rodeo clown or something.
He got a lot of momentum at the beginning of the campaign, and they tried to hide him as much as possible, which seems to be pretty easy because he seems to be quite preposterous. I believe that Canadians will do the same as Quebecers do, but they will make their own answers about it. It's not mine to interfere in their election. But the campaign, the shortest possible prime minister candidate for the Liberals, as seldom seen as possible, saying as little as possible and hiding as much as possible, including his participation in the so-called green fund, which actually is 50% oil and gas. There's some questions to be asked, and April 16th and April 17th will be quite a party.
That's hilarious. I was having a conversation with Michael, one of the guys, and he's probably watching today, and it was, he's worried, Michael is, and he was urging me to possibly do some weekend shows leading into the election because we've only got like 2 weeks left in the campaign before we have to go to the polls and vote, right? And I thought, I think the tide has begun to turn. If the tide needed turning whatsoever, again, those polls, I just don't find them believable whatsoever, and I've explained my reasons for that in previous shows. But when it comes to the debates, and I said everything's going to be hashed out in the debates. Remember last week, Friday night, I gave you the idea, which is absolutely correct in my view, that the left-wing corporate media is trying everything they can to suppress public sentiment regarding Western separation, regarding conservatives in general, regarding the fact that debates don't mean anything. They wrote articles about this. Debates, they just don't seem to have the same impact they used to have in elections, say, back in the 80s, when heavyweights Brian Mulroney and John Turner were slugging it out. Like, give me a break. This is the most critical election of my life, of your life, of all Canadians' lives. And what those guys say in that debate, those debates, because one English, one French, right, is going to mean all the difference. As we see now, some of the polls, some of the more honest pollsters like Abacus and Main Street, they're starting to show very soft areas in the Liberal campaign. Like at first, people were going, yeah, I got to vote Liberal because of Mark Carney or Trudeau's gone or whatever it was. But now people are starting to come back to earth and think about things again. Plus, with the threat of Donald Trump's tariffs being off the table, at least for now, people are starting to get concerned again about what's going on in their own backyard. Crime, can they afford their house? Are interest rates going to go up? Are we going to have inflation again? Am I going to be able to afford groceries for my kids? All of those things. And so they're going to sit and they're going to listen and they're going to watch that debate and they're going to see who they believe the most that night. And I don't think Mark Carney is going to be able to hold his own. First of all, let's look at Quebec, where he can't speak French, right? Liberal strongholds in Montreal, Quebec City, they're going to fall because the guy can't speak French. So if he's polling great in Quebec right now, we don't have to worry about that. And those seats would probably be enough, according to these ridiculous polls, to give the Liberals some kind of a majority government. If they were to win 30 or 40 seats in Quebec, I don't think they will. The Maritimes, I don't know. It's always been a left-leaning area for years, decades even. And it takes a lot to get many of those people to get rid of the Liberals and vote Conservative. They go either Liberal or Conservative. There's no real in between. The NDP, they may have had 1 or 2 seats there over the years. I think the Greens had a seat out there once, or maybe they still do, but it's mostly red and blue out there. And again, it all depends on the debate. Ontario, same thing. Speaking of Ontario, look at Doug Ford interfering in the election as he talked to reporters today. This is awful.
As for Corey, I've said right from day one, he's tough as nails, but he's the best campaign manager in the country. And to be very frank, if Corey was running that campaign, I don't think Mr. Poilievre would be in the position he's in right now. But it's still a lot of time left. And we still have debates. at the end of the day, the people will decide which way they want this country to move forward. But sometimes the truth hurts.
So he's criticizing the Poilievre campaign there, saying that he'd be doing a lot better if he had a different campaign manager. And here's the story. Ford says truth hurts, as we just heard when asked about criticism of federal Conservative campaign. Is that Ford trying to... Brian Lilly of the Toronto Sun even, who for years has been saying, no, Ford's a Conservative. He actually did a turnabout today on X. He said, with all of this happening right now and Ford saying what he said today, I firmly believe now that Doug Ford is, in fact, a liberal. Maybe he's a red Tory, but he certainly leans more towards the liberals than he does towards the Poilievre Conservatives. Premier's former campaign manager has publicly criticized federal party strategy. Wow. Ford's former campaign manager, Corey Tinecki, has been an outspoken critic of the federal Conservative campaign, suggesting it was headed for disaster and urgently needs to pivot its strategy. And I believe they have done that, and they've done it successfully. And it's happened very quickly. I think it started last week. Poilievre had a great week last week. The Liberals, not so much. Asked Monday about Tinecki's comments, Ford suggested Poilievre's campaign might be wise to listen to Tinecki's advice. I've said right from day one, he's tough as nails, but he's the best campaign manager in the country. And to be frank, we just heard that quote. Poilievre's chief strategist is Jenny Byrne, who Tinecki worked with during Stephen Harper's 2015 campaign. The latest update from CBC's poll tracker suggests the Liberals are now most likely to form government, showing Mark Carney's Liberals have a 7-point lead over the Poilievre Conservatives nationally. But again, that's all of the polls combined, all of the fake polls combined with some of the real ones. These guys are over-polling boomers. They're under-polling young people, because the young people are the ones who are going to make the difference in this election, in my opinion. When you go to a Poilievre rally, who do you see most? It's mostly young people, 20s, 30s, even early 40s, saying, you know what, I can't afford, I'm going to lose my shirt here. I'm working 3 jobs. My wife's working a job of her own. We've got 2 kids, can barely afford to feed them. Liberals got to go, right? And those guys don't have time in the day to answer a phone call from Abacus, Main Street, or Ecos to say which way they're voting. They're just going to go and vote. What you can do is look at the rallies and see if there are still so many people coming out. I think if attendance starts to dip at those rallies, Conservatives may be concerned, but for now, I don't really see any reason to be concerned. I believe, like I said last Friday night, those polls have been rigged. They're suppression polls, completely suppression polls. Now, if you want to say the Poilievre campaign is doing poorly, I would say, okay, look at this commercial and tell me that again. This is the latest Conservative Party commercial with Andrew Scheer, and it's funny. Watch.
As for Corey, I've said right.
Wrong one. This is it here. Watch.
I'm so glad we locked Vladdy down. You guys aren't texting again, are you? I thought this was over, man.
In case you're not getting the premise here, he's talking to a buddy, so it's point of view, and this buddy has just broken up with liberal Laura, let's call her, and he's drinking and texting here. So Andrew is trying to so Andrew is trying to talk some sense into him.
I mean, you said you were out. You were telling me how terrible the last 10 years were. As a friend, I barely even recognize you anymore. You lost your house. They drained your bank account. You maxed out 3 credit cards. You couldn't even afford groceries. And the drugs, man. And we're not talking about half a joint after the kids go to sleep to take the edge off the day. We're talking meth. I mean, that's not you. Oh, they've changed. Yeah, right. Of course they're going to say that. They're going to say anything they think you want to hear. And then guaranteed, within a month, it's going to be right back to the same old stuff. And guaranteed, they're going to be asking you for money again. What about all those foreign students living in the basement? And that weird arrangement with that guy from Burnaby for 2 years? What was that about? Man, if you think that this is going to be any different than the last 10 years, it's not. This is who they are. Don't be fooled. It's up to you, man. Offshore tax havens? Dude, Bermuda.
And I got to tell you, you know, Andrew Scheer, I was never truly impressed with him as the leader of the Conservatives. And I always thought he had kind of a speech impediment or something when he stood up to speak at a press conference or in the House of Commons. He just seemed awkward, nervous, stiff. But I think he's improved a little bit. That's a great, maybe he could be an actor. That's a great commercial, and it needs to be everywhere. Are the Liberals courting the inmate vote? Signs that you can tell that the Liberals are getting desperate. Never mind the polls, right? Not to mention that whole Buttongate thing. I mean, that's desperation in action right there. And remember that both of these parties, well, all of the parties actually, probably the Liberals and Conservatives more than the NDP and Greens because they've got more money. They've got internal polling. They see things that we don't see, right? We're seeing top-line data. We're seeing a little bit going deeper on, you know, age demos in areas. But these guys have got in-depth internal polling. They know what's what. And so something else that you can do to read how the parties are doing is look at Carney when he does a press conference. Look at Poilievre when he does a press conference or a rally and check for their demeanor. Check to see if there's a lot of nervous motion or if there's a lot of pausing or umming and awing. To me, it seems like Poilievre is gaining steam. He's gaining confidence. And it seems like Carney is losing it. So that's something that their internal polls are probably telling them that we don't know. And that's why we got to keep stepping on the gas here. Now, inmates. The Liberals are courting inmates? Really? Inmates. So Larry Brock, who's a conservative, he's running for he'll win. Larry Brock, he's a bulldog. He posted this on X. This document was found in a prison by a correctional officer aimed at turning inmates against conservatives, like they wouldn't be anyway. But I don't think inmates really care. And yes, inmates can vote in Canada. Are the Liberals really trying to win votes from convicted criminals by attacking conservatives on crime policies? This after a decade of Liberal soft-on-crime laws coddling criminals and unleashing chaos in our communities? Look at this. Conservative Pierre Poilievre policy. 3-strike law. Life sentences on serious offenses. Oh, I better vote Liberal. Less resources and funding for all federal prisons. The services available through this online portal, how to access them, and why you may want to register. And by the way, the Supreme Court of Canada said that in 2002, inmates can vote. I know. They shouldn't be allowed. Like, you're a convicted felon. You're in prison. The voting is probably one of the first rights you should have taken away from you. But, hey, soft on crime here in Canada. 2002, the Liberals were in power back then. Lionel Loganathan is the Conservative candidate in Markham, Unionville, I think it is. And he posted this video yesterday. You're going to find this hilarious and you're going to get angry all at the same time. I know it's tough for those two emotions to collide in 3 minutes, but they will. Watch.
Thornhill, this is Lionel Logan out here, Common Sense Conservative candidate. And I'm at the intersection of Midland and Steeles. I just put in a couple of big signs. I found a guy that's out here smashing all my signs. 20 signs this guy smashed. And we got a couple of anonymous tips. We figured out who he is. So we just put up a couple of signs here. We're going to see if he's going to come out and smash them. We're not very happy about this. And not only that, we found out that this guy is a deputy returning officer, former deputy returning officer for Elections Canada. And that's completely unacceptable. The fact that somebody who is capable of doing something like that is out here running our polls, it's unbelievable. Anyway, we're going to wait and see, and we'll provide an update shortly. Nice to see you, Alex. Is there any reason why you're smashing all my signs along Steeles?
Yeah, because your fucking party is evil.
Okay, so that doesn't give you the right to smash all my signs.
This is public property. You're polluting.
It's not. I'm not polluting. It's not.
Yeah, you are.
No, it's not. Listen, it's not private property. It's public property. You've been smashing all my signs along Steeles. Okay, I've got multiple pictures and videos of you doing it. So, if you disagree with something that we're doing, or if you disagree with something that you don't like in our platform, you're more than welcome to come to the office. You're more than welcome to talk to me about it. Have a civil conversation. But smashing my signs is completely unacceptable. I think you know that. So it's really unfortunate that you've chosen to do that. Do you have any?
See, these hardcore left-wing people, they're not all there. They are so programmed. So he's going to do what all of them do at all of these rallies, all the Palestinian and all of the trans stuff. They start filming you back, and they start giving the same stuff. Your party is evil. They have no rationale, rhyme, or reason behind the things they do. And yeah, they do vandalism also.
Anything to say for yourself, or for the sign that you just literally grabbed out of the ground? You've smashed all of them. Look, you tossed them back here. You seem to like smashing conservative signs. You claim it's on private property. It's not. So is there any reason?
No, it's public property.
It's public property, yeah. And it doesn't give you the right to smash them.
It doesn't give you the right to put your sign on public property.
Yeah, it does, actually. If this guy was a returning officer, which is petrifying for Elections Canada, then he should know that. Like, has he never been alive during an election, provincial, federal? And you see all of the signs for all of the parties all over public property. So he's clearly an idiot.
Yes, you're allowed to do that. We're in the middle of an election, sir. So you can absolutely do that. What do you have to say for yourself, Alex?
And now look.
Your party is evil. Full stop.
So because you think my party is evil, you like to smash my signs?
No, I know your party is evil.
Okay, so why are you smashing my signs? What does that have to do? Your belief, what does that have to do with you smashing my signs?
It's not a belief, it's a fact.
No, it's a belief.
Your party is evil.
There's something else they do as well. They sit there and say, that's a fact. No, it's not. No, it's not. And they do it all the time.
Your logic, why didn't you break others?
I have been tearing down every single
one. Well, how come the liberal signs don't keep going down?
Because your party is the problem.
Look, I'm the local candidate. You're more than welcome to come talk to me about the issues. Well, I don't think you want to talk. You'd rather
talk to lobbyists.
Okay, well,
because your party works for money.
Listen,
you serve the rich, not the people. Literally next to my apartment.
Arrested, vandalism. Excellent. Speaking of arrested, you don't see this often at a Palestinian protest. But over the weekend in Edmonton, there was a Palestinian protest. They tried to stop all traffic on it's the higher level bridge, I think, Edmonton people, am I right? When I say that, the higher level bridge in Edmonton, big Palestinian protest, cops all turned out, and things got a little bit ugly. So I'm going to put a warning on this video because I've seen this video try to be shared on Facebook and on YouTube, and they put the big banner, oh, there's violence. We can't show you this unless, you click the button here. ridiculous. So I'll give you the warning now, and I don't really think it's all that violent, but I'll give you the warning now about the fact that there may be violence in this video. Police taking down one of these Palestinian protests. Now, to be fair, there's not a lot of context in this video. It's 1 minute and 26 seconds. We don't know why police came after this guy, but you tell me, watching this video, if these crowds that attend Palestinian protests are more geared towards danger for the police or the Freedom Convoy from 3 years ago. So let's watch. I see they brought kids there. Yeah. Again, don't know what the guy did to deserve it, but listening to that crowd, and there are other versions of that same incident from different angles all over X. You might want to go check them out. It didn't really give any description as to what he did, but these people do cross the line quite frequently, a lot more than the Freedom Convoy folks ever did. And the police have been, to be nice, I'll say very tolerant of these kinds of things. But maybe they just went too far this time, and the police in Edmonton had had enough. There was a bunch of Palestinian protesters at a Pierre Poilievre rally last week. I'm not sure if it was in Sudbury or if it was in Windsor, but the pleb was there, and he was there covering the rally, the crowd and whatnot, and ran into these people, and he had a few things to say to them.
What do you want?
What do you want? You asked me what do you want?
Where were you born? Where were you born?
The same city you born in.
Really?
Yes.
I doubt that.
Okay.
Where were you born? Where were you born?
I born at the moon. But
Yeah, okay, yeah.
What,
We allow you into our country and this is the way you treat us?
allow me.
We allow you to come to Canada? And this is the way you thank Canada? This is the way you thank Canada? This is the way you thank Canada? This is the way you thank the country who allows you into this country?
You guys want to be.
Despicable. You are despicable. You are so lucky to be in Canada right now. You are so lucky to be in this country.
They want this. They want the fight.
Deport all of them! Deport! 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 Go home! Go home! Go back to your country! Deport! 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 Bye! Yes, you come here. Yeah. Go deport! Go back to your country. You're not welcome here. All right. Yeah, that's right. Deport these pieces of fed up of this Palestine. Honestly, it's making my blood boil right now.
I don't think Pierre Poilievre has come out and said, deport, deport, deport. He said he tracked down illegals. Between 20,000 and 500,000, we don't know because the government doesn't know, so we don't even know where to begin looking. But Poilievre has never used that kind of language. Pleb is a Polyev guy sounding more like a PPC there, right? Now, yeah, I do believe that many of these people have overstayed their welcome here. And like a guest coming over to your house, if they're going to misbehave and trample all over your carpet and ruin your coffee table, take over your kid's bedroom for whatever, 2 months, 3 months, a year, 2 years, you got to kick them out eventually. You got to stand up and say something because they're acting like, well, assholes. And we can't put up with it too much longer. We can't. So he's right to say that. And I think that Polyev should probably come out and say those things as well. Not necessarily as forcefully as that, but he definitely should come out and say, yeah, you know what, we've got to get rid of them. Because you invite them into your country, give them a new place to hang their hat, and this is the thanks we get? I don't think so. Speaking of PPC, Megan Murphy, she's been an outspoken feminist for the past 3 or 4 years. Quite a healthy following on X as well. I think she's got 95,000 followers. She's running for the People's Party of Canada. She was standing up for the Freedom Convoy. She believes in freedoms just like you and I do. She believes in truth just like you and I do. And so she decided, you know what, I'm going to run for the People's Party of Canada. I believe she's been living outside the country for the past little while. I'm not sure exactly how long. She's got a Substack here as well. And she says, just when I thought the Canadian government couldn't get any worse, looks like I won't be returning to Canada for the foreseeable future. As most of my followers know, she says, Megan Murphy again, I left Canada in January of 2021 out of genuine concern that if I didn't, I would never be able to leave. I predicted I would be targeted by the government on account of my political dissidence, specifically due to my criticisms of COVID mandates, increasing authoritarianism, and attacks on free speech by the government, as well as on account of the fact that I've been the most prominent and vocal critic of gender identity ideology and legislation in Canada for over a decade now. That I didn't know. She says, I went to Mexico and watched things get progressively worse in Canada. My choice to leave was reaffirmed over and over again. When Trudeau's Liberals went after the Freedom Convoy and its supporters, freezing the bank accounts of Canadian citizens who had done nothing wrong but were fighting for their charter rights, I began limiting my dependence on Canadian banking institutions as well. This was a dangerous, authoritarian government, and I didn't want to be left vulnerable and dependent on a government I suspected would attempt to silence and destroy me in one way or another. Despite this, I've maintained a much stronger connection to Canada than our apparent Prime Minister, Mark Carney, as I've continued to return to the country to fight for women's rights, speak at events, visit family and friends, and to cover Canadian politics extensively in my work. I still hadn't completely given up on the country, and with an election pending, I saw one last opportunity to fight for change and to force some conversations that had been suppressed in my progressive Vancouver East riding. Last month, I decided to run as a Canadian Member of Parliament and began to publicize my decision to run for the People's Party of Canada, the only party, she says, truly committed to fighting for freedom and women's sex-based rights. My candidacy was confirmed officially Tuesday. That same day, I tried to access my bank account and could not. I contacted my bank, Van City, and was informed the account had been frozen as per direction from the government. I had accessed my account just 2 days prior, so the timing was clear. I had not been informed of this freezing by anyone, not the bank, not the government. No one attempted to contact me. I was completely blindsided. When I contacted my bank, they refused to give me any information beyond the fact they were following government orders, and they gave me a number and name to contact. I called the number, got a voicemail saying the employee was on vacation all week. So basically, this guy froze my bank account and immediately went on vacation. His voicemail offered another extension to call, which I did. No one answered, so I left a message. I called again later that day and left another message. No one returned my call, so I called back the next day and left another message. Still no one returned my call. The following day, I called again, received a message saying that I could not get through on account of technical difficulties. I tried calling a general number and asked the woman on the other end of the phone if she could please refer me to someone who could provide me with information about why my bank account was frozen. She told me, I can't give you any information unless you give me more information about what's going on. To which I responded, I have no information. That's why I'm calling you to get information. We went back and forth like this for a while until I asked her if she was retarded and then said, what exactly is your job? What is it you're being paid to do with the tax dollars of Canadians? She explained her job was to refer people who called to the appropriate departments, numbers, and individuals. Okay, I said. Then can you please refer me to someone who can explain to me what's going on with my bank account? She said no. I hung up. It's now been a week since my bank account was frozen, and I've received zero communication or information from the government. I had a flight booked back to Canada today, which I canceled because if my bank account is frozen, I can't operate in the country, and because I'm very concerned about what awaits me upon arrival, I decided it wasn't worth the risk of persecution or attempted prosecution, so will not be returning to Canada, despite my original intention to come back to campaign. I completely appalled that this is how the Canadian government treats its citizens, accountability free. It's unacceptable and reprehensible to freeze the bank accounts of Canadians, leaving them potentially starving, homeless, and unable to survive ever. Never mind without contacting them, communicating with them, or providing them with any information. I can't help but note that the timing of all this is incredibly sketchy, and so my suspicion is that I'm being targeted for political reasons and that the government is attempting to find an excuse to criminalize me, as well as to punish me generally on account of my continued criticism of the ruling Liberal Party. It's also worth noting that the freezing of my bank account at this precise moment constitutes election interference, as I'm now prevented from returning to Canada to campaign in my riding. I knew things were bad in Canada. They've been moving in a terrifying direction for years, and yet far too many Canadians refuse to take their heads out of the sand and see they're living under an increasingly authoritarian, punitive, evil government, never mind pushback against this tyranny. Canadians are mere weeks away from having their rights and freedoms completely disappeared, yet many remain in hysterics about Donald Trump and an electric vehicle company owned by an American man who has zero impact on their lives, on the lives of regular Canadians. I'm lucky to have a platform where I can speak up about these things. Many Canadians don't. And the government will therefore easily get away with doing whatever they like to their citizens, accountability free, knowing most regular Canadians are left without recourse. This government is sick. Things are not fine. Things are very bad. And if Canadians don't wake up now en masse, things will undoubtedly get worse. I'm incredibly disappointed that I won't be able to return to Vancouver to run a campaign and meet with residents in my riding and have those conversations that need to be had. That said, I am still running and need your support more now than ever. She's asking for donations. Interesting. Very interesting. Here's Donald Trump and Nayib Bukele, who is the president of El Salvador, talking about the border situation down there in the United States and Mexico.
And the military now, Marines, the Army, Air Force, Coast Guard, every slot is, we have the best numbers we've ever had. We call it recruitment numbers. And we've never had anything like it. We had records on at every single level. But very important, the policemen. The policemen are joining forces now that we're having a hard time with policemen because we weren't protecting our police. Yeah. And we cherish our police. The police are great, and the firemen and everybody else. But we have the highest numbers that we've ever had, the most enthusiasm. Great enthusiasm and on trade and other things. We're doing great. We're taking in billions and billions of dollars. We made 2 weeks ago, I gave them a little bit of a pause because, you have to show a little flexibility. We go back to what we have to do. The markets have been very strong once they got used to it. But we were losing $2 billion a day. There's no company big like this. But this is the biggest deal ever made. Now we're making $3 billion a day. We're a great country, but we had stupid people running this country. And I can say it. What they've done to us at the border should never and can never be forgotten. It's a sin, what they did, and you are helping us out, and we appreciate it. Thanks.
Actually, what you're doing with the border is remarkable. It has dropped, 95%? It's incredible.
As of this morning, 99%, 99.1% to be exact.
Why are those numbers not in the media?
Well, they get out with the fake news, like CNN. CNN over here doesn't want to put them out because they don't like putting out good numbers. They only like putting out because I think they hate our country, actually.
Yeah,
but it's a shame. You're right. Isn't that a great question? Why doesn't the media? Why don't they put out numbers?
Yeah, 99%. I mean, it's crazy, right?
We're doing
it's
great.
A crazy turnaround.
Christy, could you maybe say a couple of words about the border? How we're doing?
It's just been absolutely phenomenal what a great leader can do. Clear direction. Our laws matter. We should.
Was that a CNN reporter? Couldn't be. I don't know. Kind of crazy, though. Speaking of Donald Trump, here's a great piece from the Western Standard written by James Albers, a former progressive conservative politician, provincial politician in Alberta. Donald's gift to Canada, a chance to choose who we will be. Trump's policies may be America first, but his critics are wrong when they say they're scattered, erratic, and unfocused. The issue for Canada is whether we work with Trump or against him to our detriment. So let's go ahead with this. If you're part of the Orange Man Bad Brigade, do yourself a favor. Stop reading now. Well, I'm not, so let's keep going. Seriously, put down your pitchforks and extinguish your torches. I come not to praise Donald Trump, but neither do I come to condemn him. Instead, I want to make a case that despite the volcanic rhetoric from certain political quarters and the Liberals' tireless efforts to make Trump the bogeyman of Canadian politics, the man has, in fact, handed Canada an unexpected gift. First, let us dispense with the lazy claim repeated ad nauseum by our current federal leadership that Trump's tariff policies are erratic and senseless. Nonsense. Nothing could be further from the truth. Trump's foreign policy is guided by a clear and deliberate doctrine, Fortress America. Under this vision, the U.S. pivots from being the world's hall monitor to prioritizing the creation of a mighty and self-sustaining North American economy. An economic juggernaut, impervious to Chinese and Russian machinations, shielded from destabilizing Middle Eastern influences. Trump sees a fully integrated Mexico, Canada, U.S. bloc as the ultimate global powerhouse, benefiting all three nations immensely. Consider the strategy. And remember what he just did with the Panama Canal. They're taking it back. They've got military down there now. China is going to be completely and totally expelled from the Panama Canal. Out. The push to reclaim influence over the Panama Canal after the Chinese snatched up key functions, the interest in Greenland, an Arctic foothold of strategic significance, the heightened attention on Canada and Mexico. These are not whims of a mad king, but the chess moves of a president playing the long game. At the core of Fortress America is the belief in a deeply interconnected North American alliance, a partnership rooted in shared values, joint prosperity. I think he's probably a little bit off here because there's still a lot of Israeli involvement in the U.S., let's just say, at very high government levels, and Chinese involvement in Canada. And I think he wants to get rid of the Chinese involvement in Canada, at least it sure looks like he does. But with the Israeli involvement in high-level government offices in the United States, I'm not so sure about that one. But let's continue on. This means strengthening borders, securing Arctic interests, and cracking down on criminal exploitation of weak points, whether in drug trafficking or foreign interference. The vision is bold, a continental engine of unrivaled economic and military strength. Now, enter stage left, Canada's Liberal government. While most Canadians instinctively understand our natural affinity with the United States, culturally, economically, and historically, our current leadership does not. Instead, they flirt with open borders globalism and embrace the same muddled policies as the European Union and Joe Biden's Washington. They downplay crime, demonize lawful gun owners, and cozy up to Beijing's interests both in trade and, more disturbingly, in their silent tolerance of China's organized crime networks operating on Canadian soil. And this is where things become truly troubling. China, with its unyielding Arctic ambitions, yes, they have them, finds in Canada a disturbingly willing accomplice. The fentanyl trade is but one symptom. Far too easily, the poison moves across our porous border and into American streets. The claim that only 1% of fentanyl trafficking into the U.S. comes via Canada is laughable. It merely reveals how little of it we are intercepting. But the damage doesn't stop at security. Liberal policies enthroned on the altar of climate dogma have inflicted grievous wounds on our economy. Our energy sector, once the envy of the world, is in tatters. Our national defense is a skeleton force. Our confederation itself frays at the edges. Canada, once confident and sturdy, has become a brittle shell, economically vulnerable, militarily irrelevant, and politically adrift. Here's where Trump's unexpected gift comes in. His tariffs, though painful, have stripped away Canada's illusions. At least they need to quickly, before the election day, hopefully. They've laid bare the mediocrity and mismanagement of our federal leadership. While Mexico found a way to align with Trump's vision, Canada stubbornly clung to petty virtue signaling and domestic grandstanding. The tariffs were not mere economic bludgeons. They were clarifying instruments. They revealed the extent of our decay, and therein lies the opportunity. Trump's policies have forced Canada into a painful but necessary self-reckoning. We now stand at a crossroads. We can either seize the moment, redefine ourselves and forge a future as a strong and self-respecting partner in this continental alliance, or we can continue down the path of decline, content to be a feckless and fading nation. One final thought. If, after 3 terms of Liberal misrule, Canada has become so impoverished, so weakened, and so devoid of resilience that it cannot recover, then perhaps it is time for Albertans and perhaps others to consider the unthinkable. If our own leadership has no intention of defending our prosperity, perhaps it's time to strike out independently for the sake of our economy, our future, and the futures of our children. I thought that was an incredibly well-written, well-thought-out piece. In the extension for the past week and a half, we've been going part by part through Europa, the last battle. Tonight we have part 8 coming up for all access pass holders at shadowdavis.com. If you're not a member, I suggest you go and become one. The conversation is great on Telegram, the Shadow at Night community there. The people are very welcoming, and they're willing to engage in great, respectful conversations, and you'll have a chance to win one of these this week as well, the Shadow at Night ball cap. There it is there. Or maybe you'd like a Shadow at Night 20-ounce coffee mug. Either way, you have to be an all-access member to qualify to win one of those. But here's an interesting piece. This is all about this story that we're following, this documentary we're following is a look at history that fills in holes from the other side of things. What we've learned about World War II and what's happened in Europe since World War II has all been very one-sided, don't you think? Everything we learned in school, you know, the H-man there, and what he was, an evil monster. He burns in hell. The devil sticks pineapples up his ass on the hour, every hour. Backwards. But what if he wasn't? So this is, there's so many different viewpoints and facts that get brought out in this particular documentary. It's so very fascinating. Tonight's is 2 hours long. It's not 2 hours. It can't be 2 hours. So we're going to shorten it down to 1 hour. So part 8.1 tonight, and then part 8.2 tomorrow night. But here's Clayton from Redacted. There's a lot of people out there who believe that Hitler didn't die in that bunker in Germany, that he lived 20 years longer in Argentina. So here's Clayton from Redacted telling us a little bit more about that, just to warm you up.
Most people know this story and who have studied the subject know that Adolf Hitler didn't kill himself in a bunker in Berlin as the Red Army closed in. I think that's, we all know that was a fabricated story, or if you watch the show, you probably understand that. Hitler actually fled Germany weeks before that using a group of underground tunnels that led to an airstrip And that airstrip was flown. He was flown from Berlin out. It took submarines, or multiple submarines that were used, U-boats that were then sent to Argentina. In other words, Hitler lived for nearly 2 decades more in Argentina, along with vast numbers of the Third Reich. Well, now Argentinian President Javier Milei has just ordered the release of all remaining documents on all of those Nazis who fled Germany and moved to Argentina after World War II. Basically, it was almost like a second base of operations in Argentina. If you're not familiar with that, like basically the Third Reich operated out of Argentina and Germany. And many of them, including Adolf Hitler, lived in Argentina well after 1945. Most people know that Hitler lived out his days in Bariloche, Argentina, until he died there in the mid-1960s. Yes, you can read the CIA documents about this, the FBI documents also about sightings of Hitler in this area. They knew about it. Of course they knew about it. It was largely facilitated, I think it's safe to say, by the United States and its allies. Operation Paperclip, anybody? Quid pro quo?
Also, if you look into this, the skull that is held in Russia that was supposedly the remains of Adolf Hitler with a bullet wound in it is female.
Yeah.
So when you look for proof that Hitler did in fact kill himself in the bunker, you are going to find a lot of dead ends.
Yeah. And all you need to read, you can read a great book on this called The Gray Wolf. It's a great book. There's many books written about this now. But yeah, the skull, the fragments, they ran the DNA tests on it. And the Soviets allowed them to do this testing. And even Stalin openly talked about that Hitler lived, that he was not there. So Stalin even knew about it. It's widely known in Argentina, by the way, well known, that Hitler sired 2 children while he lived in Argentina after the war. 2 girls. Wouldn't that be something to learn where Hitler's children are today? Like Hitler's descendants?
You know, the first time I ever heard about that, it was from a Mad magazine in 1973 or 1974. They were doing a send-up of All in the Family. I forget what they called it, but and it was on record. Like this particular episode or this particular issue of Mad magazine came with a record, so I played it. And it was Archie Bunker. Geez, he did what's... And he runs into Adolf Hitler, who'd been alive and well and living in Argentina. And I went, what? Mom, is that true? You know, I was like 9 or something. And she goes, oh, no, don't be silly. But it always stayed with me. Apparently, maybe it was. So part 8.1 of Europa, The Last Battle, coming up in just a couple of minutes on the extension on shadowdavis.com. For the rest of you, I will catch you tomorrow night at 8 o'clock Central for another episode. I love you all. I appreciate you all. I'll catch you tomorrow night. All access, I'll see you in 2 minutes. Be right back.